Hey guys, I'm Matt Ledbetter with the House of Folk Art, and I'm here with folk artist, visionary artist, Cher Shaffer. She came down from the high country, and she is here to talk to us today about what it's like to be a real artist that has the urge to create.
It's a good thing, I'm telling you. I will tell you the first thing that I remember anybody saying to me about doing something special. And art is a special thing. We all have it within us, absolutely every one of us. If somebody says to me, I can't paint anything, I just paint stick paintings, I said, I've made a living painting stick paintings.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, I was born in 1947. I am 78 years old. And when I was born with 3 thumbs. I had an extra thumb on my right hand. And I was born at midnight. So fortuitously, at that point, that I don't know what my mother thought, God bless her, but when my grandfather, my Indian grandfather, my Pawpaw Brown, heard that I had 3 thumbs and that I was born at midnight, he said, she will do something great with her hands. And I remember my mother telling me when I was about 8 years old, I said, Mama, why do I have this scar on my thumb? And she said, because you were born with 3 thumbs. And I said, where is it? Where's my other one? And she said, we didn't want you to be a freak, so we had it removed when you were 3 days old. And I started crying. And she said, why are you crying? I said, Mama, I could have been in the circus. Little did I know that I was going to be in a circus, because being an artist is a lot like every single day you have something that is, it's like a sideshow, and you are front and center, and if you don't show up, nobody else is going to care. But if you show up and do your job, you might get people to recognize that you have something to say and that it's worth listening to. This painting right here was done either in 89, 90, 91. I don't exactly know.
90.
90. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you got a date right there.
Perfect. That was a very pivotal time for my work, because I went from doing incredibly narrative things and joyful things, animals, because I grew up on a farm. I began to paint what I saw. And probably the first shape after I would start by putting paint onto a paper or a canvas, like I was telling you, the 7 strokes.
Mm-hmm.
I put it on there, and then I would start to see things emerging. I would see lines, and I would just follow the lines. I was as intrigued by following the lines as I was the fact that I was seeing it. So what I would do is I would follow the lines, and I would end up with a painting. It was like, and I have never used drugs, I have never used alcohol, but it was like a hallucinogenic thing. You would come into a point that was almost between hallucinations and dreams.
Can I have this? I want this painting. I'm just kidding. I do want the painting there. Okay.
But
Side
it is like an in between world. And when I had my illness in 1985, for a while I played around with not doing what I was seeing, and I was not at all pleased with what I was doing. I was doing stuff that made money for my agent, but I wasn't doing what was coming out of here.
And where were they at? New York, you said?
She was from West Virginia, but lived in New York and Beverly Hills.
So you were painting your narrative paintings. She had a good market for those. And what happened when you showed her this?
She said, no. you cannot do this. You'll leave your audience behind. I thought, hey, audience,
Yeah, you
this is all about me, bud.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So how many paintings like this do you think you've done? Because I've seen Cher Shaffer's work
Mm-hmm.
for 5 years now, and I've never seen.
No, you
these.
haven't.
So how many of these did you do?
These vintage pieces I probably had at some point 35, 40 of them, Denny, maybe, because I kept them.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not real. Yeah, some of my work I do get very
Sentimental.
yes, sentimental, but a lot of it no, and I have realized that probably it's better for me to keep a few pieces, but not to get completely tied up in them.
Yeah.
Because I did this for me when I was doing it, but when it was finished, it wasn't for me.
Right.
It had another purpose besides being for me.
Right.
But if you look, this is the all-seeing eye, and this is the sun. And then if you look here, you see this figure. Now that figure shows up a lot. It looks like
Yeah.
a spook.
Mouth,
Yeah,
hair.
It's kind of spooky looking, but I see spooky looking stuff sometimes. And I have
Here's another one.
these paintings during that period of time kept me from going completely off the rails because I had little children and I was trying to figure out what am I supposed to do with these kids? You know, I love them and I'm taking care of them, but how am I going to keep them safe for their entire life? I didn't have a concept that wasn't actually my job to keep them safe for their entire life.
Right.
And I was painting things that I was feeling. So this is a very emotional painting. And you can actually see that it is emotional. But this is also kind of working. I'm going to say this, that one of these days, that'll hang in the one will hang in the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Right.
And that's not being arrogant. That's being confident.
Well, we just talked about the Met and how 5 years ago they did not have a self-taught outsider art wing, but I believe that they do now, or they're at least they're moving that way. So for sure,
Yeah.
this is, and everybody's different, but this, knowing you, knowing the story, knowing why is what makes this better, as opposed to just saying, "Oh, it's abstract." You know, you just told us why it's abstract. So it makes a lot of sense, and it's really great.
It's other worlds emerging in color and shape.
Right.
Yep. And, you know, that's a deep part of me during a period of my life when I was very different than I am now.
Right.
Very different. Probably a lot more innocent.
Yeah, we're talking about almost 40 years ago. I mean, you're talking about 35 years ago.
But when I would do a painting like this, I would realize I had to get away from it for a while after I did it because I was so wrapped up and involved in it that it was almost like I had become it. And
you became the painting.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes. And there's a lot of, I will paint things that maybe are more images that are like me. And if I picked out an image that was like me, it'd be this creature right here. Because I feel sometimes like I am more of the natural world and more like the wild things.
I mean, hey, the art dealer that did not interpret this to, I mean, you know, too bad for her.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
she, bless her heart, okay, she was very controlled in her
Controlling
being.
or controlled?
Both.
Oh.
Both. And so what I had to do to just break her out of that, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I said, now, just follow me for a little while. This is what I'm going to do. And I painted a painting of a huge dragon. It was abstracted. And I used to go to her place every once in a while when she was in West Virginia, because she had a home in West Virginia, a home in Sag Harbor, and then a home in Beverly Hills. But when she was in West Virginia, I would take her work sometimes for her to look at. And she would say, all right, I want this one, and I want this one, and I want this one. And I would say, okay. And I would tell her a price, and she'd always say, no, let's haggle a little. And I would say, okay, because I understood that. And she would end up with huge paintings. And when they would walk away from me, I'd think, what did I do? Okay, so I didn't need the money as much, but why did I do that? But maybe, she did represent me well, because she built a reputation for me outside of me having to be someplace.
Right.
She did a show in Beverly Hills once for me with a bunch of movie stars and stuff, and I wouldn't go. And she said, what's wrong with you? Why won't you come out here? I said, because California's going to fall off into the sea, and I don't want to be there when it does.
Oh, Lordy.
So that wasn't a real good excuse for her.
No.
But anyhow, over the years, she watched the shift and the change, and what she did watch was somebody that had been very controllable become uncontrollable.
Right.
Because when an artist finds their voice, if they actually value who they are and what they do, ain't nobody going to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about.
That is what it's
And you have more recognition than a lot of artists, because a lot of artists just sit in their house and they create without any influence from a dealer or a gallery or anybody telling them anything. So,
and it's a good thing. I mean, I sell through 4 galleries, and I sell through a fine art gallery. The woman sells European art, which is not even related to what I do.
Right.
But she sells some of my art. She's in Charlotte, Allison Sprock Fine Art Gallery. And then I just started selling through Around Back at Rockies, who is a straight-up folk art gallery in Dawsonville, Georgia. And
what is that one called?
Around Back at Rockies.
Around Back at Rockies. I like it.
And she's the one that built cornbread.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, this stuff does really well.
And then I have sold through a gallery in North Wilkesboro, the Taupe Gallery. And those guys, there's some of my art that they can relate to and some they can't, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
There'll be somebody out there.
Yeah, and there's a little place in Asheville that made it through the storm, thank God. That Horse and Hero. Now they sell more contemporary prints and things like that, but they have sold some of my small work. And let's talk about that storm.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to tell me what you got going on, because you got something coming up.
I am working on a body of work right now that deals with the storm and the aftermath of Helene, because it tore up Ashe County where I live, and a lot of counties and a lot of other places too. But I pay attention to the way things feel a lot. And there is a feeling that is still in our mountains that is sad. It's very sad. And those mountains are powerful. They have a spirit that is commanding. And people that are weak don't live in the mountains. They may move there, but they don't live there long. And you have to have that as you have to have a kinship to the mountains in order to to live there and to thrive. When I came home from the hospital after having open heart surgery in September, I was home on Thursday. Helene struck Thursday night.
Oh.
And we had some flooding. We had some flooding. It went down to our barn and a couple of our sheds and stuff. And the saddest thing that happened was that my dog that I loved with all my heart died 2 days after I got home. He had mourned while I was in the hospital, not understanding what had happened, where I was, because he was with me when I was having the heart attack.
Right.
But one day I sat down and I thought, there's this feeling, I've got to work through this feeling of sadness and of despair and of things that were so beautiful being destroyed. And people's houses floating down the river and their cars going in the river. I mean, that's something you cannot immediately just go, oh, so what? No. I went, oh, God, we got to do something. We got to do something. I don't know what. But my what now has turned into a visual journey of documenting the way things feel in the mountains, the way they felt when the storm was going on, and the way that they feel now after the storm is over and everything is so tore up. We have gigantic trees in the river with their roots coming up, big trees that should have lived another 100 years, that had probably already lived 100 years,
Right.
torn up. And those things, you can't see those things. When we live 25 miles or 20 miles from the nearest grocery store, so we have to travel every place we go. I live deep in a hollow. That's okay. I like it.
Right.
But when we go to the store, I'm always looking at the river and looking at the river banks. And the mountains are made of stones. They're strong. But it's like the tears of the mountains were all those stones falling out of them, coming down in mudslides and coming down the river and going on to the banks of the creeks and the river, and places that were all grassy and plants now are solid rocks. I'm talking rocks about that big, not gigantic ones, but rocks about that big, and they're everywhere. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And I don't know what happened to the wildlife. We used to have a lot of rabbits. We don't have many rabbits now. The deers, we have a whole herd of deers that come up because we feed them. And they come up and they get apples or they lick the salt block or something like that. And I think about, where did y'all hide? Where did you go when that was happening?
Mm-hmm.
And so many people lost their lives. So many people lost their homes. And that feeling, it's got to be addressed. And that I'm creating a body of work right now that I call The Day the Mountains Cried. Oh,
You didn't tell me the name of it over the phone.
no,
Yeah.
The Day the Mountains Cried.
Wow.
And every time I didn't, this was almost like accidental, because I thought, I've got to do something to get this feeling expressed, to get this feeling out.
Right.
And the paintings are very brutal. They're very brutal. They are more of a dark nature.
Right.
Than a light nature. The first one I did was The Day the Storm Came. That one is the lightest one of all. And I did one of my dog, River, and I put a caption on it, "Where did my mama go?" And he is the saddest looking thing. And I almost couldn't finish it because it made me so emotional.
Right.
But I did. And I have 14 pieces finished right now. I don't know how many more I will finish. But when I finish them, I want to show them in the area, first of all, where the storm was. And then I want them to go to other places around North Carolina and maybe even into Tennessee. That storm has got to be appeased and addressed. It can never happen like that again. And I know that I'm not omnipotent, but I pray to God it doesn't ever, ever, ever happen like that again. But
Well, I don't think anybody. I mean, you build your house near a mountain on a mountain. Why would it flood like that? And then it did.
the mountains, some of the mountains slid down.
Yeah.
There were mudslides. It was unimaginable. And several times now, as we're going into town, there's a place on the New River where there's a door floating in the river.
Oh man.
And I always look over and see that door, and I think, whose house did that come off of?
That'd be that's a painting.
Mm-hmm.
One painting with a missing door.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you probably already did it.
I've done a lot of the buildings are kind of like sheds and barns and houses that are in shambles.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, good luck with that. I know you'll do. I know. Who knows how many you're gonna get to before it finishes? I mean, you said you're at 24.
I've got 14.
14. So.
But I don't know. I mean,
you could go to 50. You could go to 124.
I have to have a feeling of completion.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. So this could last a year or 2 years.
Probably. Yeah. Probably. I'm just hoping that I get enough support and attention from some of the institutions that will recognize.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is an important body of work. I really feel like that. And I'm hoping that I can have I want it to be shown where the storm happened first. And then it could be like a healing device too.
Right. Well, it's a good thing. I'm glad we got on here to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really nice having you.
Thank you.
Until today, you were a myth to me. You were a mythical artist that I never thought I'd get to meet, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad you came. And let us know if you got a piece of Cher's work. Why don't you comment in and I'm sure you could add a photo or something to the. How do you do that, Kyle? You add a photo. Yeah, they'll figure that out. But Sher, it's been really nice.
Thank you.
We were here today with Cher Shaffer, and we got to share some stories. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time.